Good afternoon. It's often said that never cut a tree bending away from towards you, for obvious reasons. Never kiss a girl bending away from you, again, for obvious reasons. And never have a very boring last panel discussion just before lunch. So we'll try to make it exciting. Excellent, Adam. I was looking at your presentation, and one thing you did not talk about, or maybe it was there in a larger scope, was the LNG carriers, but the LNG bunker vessels. So there has been an interesting last 2 years, especially 2024, as you rightly said, was one of the largest ordering years. And among other vessels, it was also one of the largest record-breaking orders for alternate fuel vessels. And in that, particularly so, it was LNG fuel ships. And that juggernaut has not stopped. We've seen that since start of this year, almost more than 100 LNG fuel vessels have already been ordered. So overall, in water and on order, about close to 1,300 vessels now. On the other hand, if you look at last year, it was also a record year for LNG fuel to be delivered. And proudly so, Singapore was the port which actually delivered the highest amount, almost close to half a MTP of LNG as fuel was delivered here in Singapore. But the question is, as these LNG fuel ships are continuously being ordered, do we have the enough infrastructure? The jetties to load the LNG bunker vessels, the LNG bunker vessels to deliver the tanks, is it enough? And that is one of the topics of today's discussion, bridging the supply gap in LNG bunkering infrastructure. Is capital the missing link? So let's start that. I have some very august, eminent panelists with me. And let me start with you, Michael. You look at both sides. There has been a lot of LNG bunker vessels also ordered recently, some of the new yards, some new owners. So is there really a shortage? Are we looking at that, or there is sufficient infrastructure as well from the point of view of LNG bunker vessel?
Thanks, Saunak. Much appreciated, and thanks very much, Marine Money, for having us here. I think we've probably lost at least half the audience, which is good, so they've already made up their mind. But I will say 10 years ago, when I used to bore people about LNG bunkering, we would have lost the whole audience. So I think the hockey stick curve of the audience is basically what we're seeing in this market as well. There is a shortage, but I tell you what, I was super relieved when we did get all these orders, because it was looking like we were throwing a big party and the pub had run out of beer. Luckily, the ships are starting to come now, and as you rightly said, the customers have ordered the dual fuel tonnage. If they then rocked up on the water and we weren't there to supply the molecules, we're going to have a real issue. But yeah, we need to keep ordering the LNG bunkering vessels to keep a pace with the customers. I think last week we saw that Young Ming Line ordered a whole fleet of ships. There's rumours that Evergreen are also going to order another lot. And just that announcement last week is the equivalent of one 20,000 cubic metre LNG bunker vessel being really well optimised. I mean, they'd have to hand the keys to you, Saunak, to make sure they got the utilisation out of that one. When we see these kind of orders and these announcements coming each week, and we're talking about a very small fleet of proper new LNG bunkering vessels, there's a lot more that needs to come. So yes, there's a shortage, and I'm glad that we are eating away at it, but we need much more money, and we need many more owners getting into this space.
Thank you. Interesting. Sheen, you have been a huge operator of bunker vessels, owner and operator of conventional bunker vessels, and you are putting your feet in LNG now, which is very welcome. What is your view? Do you see that there is a supply shortage? Do you think, are these restrictions about the financing of the deployment of it major hurdle?
Thanks, Saunak, and thanks to Marine Money for inviting me as well. I would like to refer to something you mentioned. I think there is not that much references to LNG bunkering vessel, because it's not about renewing the fleet. It's actually about creating a non-existent fleet, or creating a new fleet for a new kind of product, which is so-called LNG as a marine fuel. Of course, LNG as marine fuel has been around for a long time, and therefore, safety, commercial, operational, it's proven. And definitely we see a shortage now. And why it's so, it's because if you just look at the numbers you mentioned again, it'll be 1,300, or if not 1,400 by the end of this decade in terms of number of LNG fueled vessels. And in terms of the number of bunkering vessels, we used to say tankers because conventional, they are tankers, but LBVs, they're actually not able to keep pace. And even this year in Singapore, we see that the LNG bunker volumes have already surpassed last year, by a good margin. And, the question is that, is it an issue of the lack of assets to increase the volume? It appears to be the case. And just to also add on that, LNG is a very unique marine fuel. It's not what we say, we always say it's not comparable to the other alternative marine fuels because LNG is not only in the meantime a transition but compliant fuel, but it's also a very cost-effective or competitive fuel. So when we see the search for this couple of years, it has not been compliance-driven. It's partially also cost-driven. So for those who have seen during the COVID, of course, LNG prices did surge, but it did come down. For what we say traditional bunker suppliers such as ourselves, Equatorial, I think we do quite a large volume of 5 million tons of marine fuel a year. Singapore does 50 million, which is about 20% of the world. We saw that there were instances where LNG has actually went down below low sulfur fuel with low gas, high sulfur as well. So it's something which, when we look at where are we going to put the money, it's something which I think we can already calculate and make sense of it now. Yeah, so again, why are people hesitant to invest inside? Again, perhaps it's not a renewal, it's creating of something new, but hopefully people will understand it more. People such as our session, such as this, to explain a bit more about the significance, and of LNG. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. Yulan, you as Shell have a visibility over multiple regions, globally. What is your view? Do you see this shortage on the supply side? What are you looking at, or what are the restrictions on this infrastructure side?
Thanks for your question. I started in the LNG business about 10 plus years ago and went into the bunkering business back in 2020. I think at that time, the questions, I think 2023 was a time when people were saying there is going to be a LBV, LNG bunker vessel supply gap looming, right? And then the question is, do we have that? There was a dearth of investment, but luckily last year and this year, you're seeing a big increase in the number of LBVs being ordered. That's in response to the rapid uptake of LNG dual fuel vessels ordered by the customers, predominantly the container liners as well as the car carriers. So it's good that sort of the gap is being narrowed. The other thing that I see, but people don't really talk about, is that when we look at that gap, the gap is basis the full potential demand of LNG. And in reality, the actual demand of the LNG is lower than that potential. And why is that the case? It's because the customers have the flexibility of choosing LNG or fuel oil basis the pricing. So today, as what Sheen has already said, at times LNG is cheaper than fuel oil. And as well as if you look at the, again, the ships who are going to Europe, LNG is already compliant, right, with fuel EU maritime all the way to 2035. So you're not just looking at fuel cost savings, but you're also looking at compliance cost savings. Therefore, they have that flexibility. So fuel oil is cheap, they go fuel oil is high, they don't burn fuel oil, they burn LNG. So this uncertainty, at least from the supplier's perspective, is going to persist, and I don't think that's going to go away. But that is a flexibility that the customers get, the charters get from LNG that you can't get from a single fuel vessel. Yeah. But looking at the capital side, I don't think capital is really a constraint. The constraint to sort of grow this business It's not just LBV. I think LBV, we can get it quite easily. But the storage and reloading infrastructure in a number of locations are going to be quite constrained in a couple of years looking forward at the demand. So that is an area that needs to be addressed through some form of collaboration, some sort of commitment to unlock those supply chain.
Yeah, thank you, Milan. Thank you. That point which you said is very interesting. So although we saw record-breaking LNG bunker volumes last year and this year continuing, it actually is still not the real picture because of the LNG pricing. So if I look at Adam's presentation earlier and others, if this LNG price, because of the huge amount of supply coming into the market, falls down, then there certainly will be a huge supply restriction. So at least we have established that there is a supply restriction. Then let's look at it, what is stopping. Sheen, what is hesitation around the capital deployment for LNG bunker vessels? As an owner, when you think about it, what is stopping you from ordering, say, 6 or 10 of them?
I think for us, because I think while we can see the market moving forward, I think bunkering, is a very niche sector in the overall shipping market, even in the overall oil trading market. So therefore, there's always, when it comes to something which I will not say is new, but something which is not so well known, people definitely hesitate. As a bit more, question will be, are we going to use the traditional model, traditional ship financing leasing model, where we're going to get a long-term charter it out? Who can we charter it to? Of course, the number of players, who are in the market also much different. The traditional owners who are going to charter out are also quite different. And I think, of course, the significance is actually the initial entry barrier. The capital required is much higher. I think we can share that literally we can build maybe almost 10 bunker tankers with one LNG bunker vessel. So imagine it's also, maybe it's the same concept where people say, do we want to build 5 or 6 in our thinking, do we want to build about 50 or 50 bunker tankers? So I think that is perhaps one of the restrictions. But I think importantly, as what Hwee has actually mentioned, is that we don't just see bunkering in isolation, we look at the whole vertical. LNG bunkering is fortunate in a way that it's at a stage where it's really scaling up at a very rapid pace, at a very large scale, and therefore you don't only look at one part of the supply chain. You start to look upstream, you start to look downstream. Of course, now we focus, we see where the ship owners have put their money, in terms of, while they can say many things, we see them LNG dual fuel is being, the order books speaks for itself, but we also look upstream. Is there sufficient storage? LNG, are they coming online? How will it be like? So we also have a mini episode in terms of the biofuel side, but of course you can't compare with LNG, because for biofuels, both the supply side and the demand side is much smaller compared to what we are seeing with LNG bunkers at the moment.
Thank you, Sheen. If you look at that and the capital burden we are talking about, I'll take this to you, Hwee. You as Shell are the suppliers of this, and do you think some kind of a co-partnership, co-ownership can de-risk this? Do you think that model can help the infrastructure grow? What is, as a supplier's view on this capital burden?
I think if you look back, a couple of years ago when we started, I guess Shell has been one of the pioneers in developing LNG as a marine fuel. Back in 2017, 2018, when we had our very first LNG bunker vessel, we had to own it. So it was called the Khadisa. I think with FueLNG as well, with the Bellina, we owned it. But over time, we've got the industry, the ship owners have been getting more comfortable as LNG, as a bunkering, as a vessel becomes more, I guess, not still a very niche product, but they're getting more comfortable with it. So we're now also seeing some ship owners making speculative orders without actually having a long-term charter locked in. I think the last few years, for us, if we want to run a ship, we need to lock in long-term charters with the ship owners. I think it's still the case, but we're still seeing that risk appetite has actually increased because we're seeing some ship owners actually taking speculative orders without having a back end. So I don't think that really the capital is the issue. As much as before, it's still relevant from a supplier perspective. We look at, okay, besides that, what is that business case, right? What is the business case for investing? What is the growth potential? We talked about IMO uncertainty. Will the LNG dual fuel vessel train keep moving forward and give us the confidence? Will the customers actually maybe fearing that there is a gap, want to then lock up more capacity or commitment with the LNG bunker suppliers? So that gives us a bit more confidence to go and order new ships. And that also unlocks that supply chain because then we can be more confident talking with the infrastructure players to say, hey, I need to get more capacity because those capacity may then require certain amount of long-term investment as well. So you need to look entire chain across to see and to enable that. So I think that is probably a bigger concern than just capital alone.
Thank you, thank you. I think that puts up in a perspective. Michael, you have been ace shipbroker as well as LNG bunkering ships are considered their new building tenders and things like that. How do you see that? How do you see new entrants as well as existing owners? What should encourage them to come in? Do you think long-term contracts or something, they have a role here? Or what has been your experience?
Yeah, it's often a pretty big step change, and I think Sheen Mao highlighted that. If you're looking at ordering a conventional bunker vessel versus a cryogenic bunker vessel, the cost is considerable. But the wonderful thing about LNG bunker vessels as an owner is that you're also moving to the rich end of town. You've got lovely people like Shell who are on the other side of the charter party. It's a very, very bankable contract. And you're doing it for 7 years, you're doing it for 10 years, you're doing it for 15 years. So I realize that there are some owners out there who aren't comfortable with the size of the investment because obviously these are small ships compared to a Cape size in dry cargo, and if you're paying more for a 20,000 cubic meter bunker vessel than you are for a conventionally fueled Cape, I can understand why it's easier to convince the old man that the investment needs to be in the traditional because that's the comfortable place to be. Obviously for those who have the kahunas, as you might say, to look at the new market, to access the niche market and say, you know what, why don't we do 4 ships for 10 years with ExxonMobil or with Shell or with Petronas? These guys are bankable. They've got an awful lot of LNG coming, and they've said no matter what happens, they will keep paying us. I don't need to rely on the spot market in 3 years' time. Then it's a no-brainer. And this is why you have people like Avenir who have suddenly found that what looked like an interesting market for them and fairly nerve-wracking, and that's why they hedged it by having a terminal business, hedged it by having their own small-scale LNG bunkering business. They've said, not anymore, we're now a pure-play shipping company because the returns are there. It's maybe not the rockstar returns that you get from container shipping, but it's long-term bankable industrial shipping with the most bankable counterparties you can get. And so that's why people are coming into it, and those who are making the move. And it's not just Avenir. Suddenly you see conventional LNG owners in. Celsius coming along, right? These guys come, you suddenly have Alpha interested, you have Marin Gas interested, you have Cardiff interested. These guys are all shipping royalty. They're the ones who 5 years ago said, Newman, hang up the phone, you're boring me. They're the ones going, Newman, what's the market doing? Why didn't you show us that tender? So yeah, so it is changing, and luckily it is. And those who have the resources to keep doing the traditional and move into this space will continue to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you for that snapshot. It's really nice to see what is happening practically. How far an impact, Michael, I'll continue with you. Do you think all the discussions around ammonia, methanol, how big is that impact on the take-up of LNG's bunker fuel and LNG bunker vessel infrastructure?
I think really positive, to tell you the truth. We need every solution we can get. I mean, I think As Michael said in the previous interview then, decarbonisation is the path that we're going to take whether you like it or not, whether it's convenient for your business or not. So let's have it all. Let's have methanol, let's have ammonia, let's have carbon capture and storage on board. Let's come up with every solution we can. Nuclear, I love it. Let's get there. 30 years is ambitious, but let's try it, right? But I think the whole part is just changing people's mindset. If everyone thinks you can keep ordering ships that are conventionally fueled, then you're going to fail, right? So you need to have the mindset and the understanding that something has to give. And I don't mind if as a ship owner you say, I'm going all in on ammonia. Go for it, that's brilliant. You're at least taking a position, right? You're not just going with all the other sheep who are saying conventional fuel is where the market is. You take a position and you say, we're going to decarbonize because it's the right thing to do, plus have a look at where the zeitgeist is taking us. Notwithstanding some noise in a few countries, you're going to be on the path of the right way. So as long as we have people having these discussions about what fuel should we choose, it's going to be good for LNG.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Wilan, you as Shell look at multi-fuels, multi-pathways, and globally. What is your view? How do you balance the uncertainties of tomorrow with today's investment in LNG as fuel? How do you balance that?
Yeah, very good question, Saunak. I think first thing that we sort of looked at is, maybe just use this opportunity to also share, that when we look at the alternative fuels, we need to do a apples-to-apples comparison. I think oftentimes we've been compared fossil LNG with biomethanol, fossil LNG with ammonia, and therefore it is not as good. But we need to compare fossil with fossil. So fossil LNG comparing with fossil methanol and ammonia, bio LNG with biomethanol, and then synthetic LNG with e-ammonia. Once we make that comparison, then we kind of see that actually across each of that dimension, LNG, whether it's a fossil form or a bio form or synthetic form, still have a very important role to play. Fossil LNG is already sort of competitive, right? It's widely available, and it already allows you to comply with Hwee Maritime. Hopefully, when IMO sort of makes the adoption in MEPC in October, it will also show that LNG is going to be a favorable fuel for the ship owners and charterers to use for decarbonization. So for us, I think the methane pathway is still a very strong way to net zero, and that's why for us, we still sort of continuing to go down that LNG track. We've already have 13 LNG bunker vessels, and we've recently ordered another 2. So we are still watching carefully on how this develops, and we're looking at the signposts to see how the alternative fuels play out. But for now, our focus is still this. And with the customers who do not have a alternative fuel vessel, then we still can offer customers biofuels to help them with the decarbonization.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sheen, do you also believe in what just Wilan was stating? Do you think that having options like biomethane or bio-LNG, it in a way is able to give a reassurance to the investors when you're looking for a big capital burden for a big investment? Do you think that is possible?
I think for us, biomethane really stretches out the longevity of LNG. Even by itself as a fossil fuel, we see that it's going to be very competitive, even if you would have to pay carbon taxes in that sense, you know, for at least the next 20, 25 years, or even 30 years. So even when we look at the whole span of the green transition, we find that LNG is very, very competitive. Like you mentioned, you know, today we are seeing LNG going at these volumes despite the price. You know, it speaks for itself, you know, and actually even in today's market, we see LNG is competing with B24, B30 biofuel blends in the market, and LNG is competitive and offers similar kind of, carbon emissions reduction as well. And for us, what we feel is that as a bunker supplier, as a bunker seller, I think sometimes we feel that the industry as a whole, or when we say industry, not just the ship owners and ship operators, but we say all the stakeholders don't fully appreciate the importance of how ship owners and bunker purchasers value the price of the fuel. So it's not a joke where we can be spending a lot of time haggling over even, 50 cents per ton. And of course, then we are looking at all these newer fuels, it's maybe twice the price and things like that. I think it will come. For us, investing in a LNG dual fuel could be something as when we see in 2020 when industry, the first movers, they went to do scrubbers. They said, okay, we are going to pay for VLSFO, a very low sulfur fuel oil. But, those who invested in scrubbers, I think they earn back their payback, I think, in 1 year.
That's true.
So I think we will see this. Of course, to some, it might be a leap of faith, but I think for those who are right, I think we do see the trend, the amount of LNG coming to the market over the next few years. Those who have been funding the LNG projects, you'll see the supply is going to be quite significant. So I think it's very, very interesting time for LNG.
Thank you, Sheen. The point which you raised, recently FueLNG had actually done a study on this, and they found out that those people they took, I think, a 16 KTU container vessel, and they did a financial analysis. And based on what MEPC 83 had indicated, if you look at that number, having a LNG fueled vessel, the payback period was only 4 to 5 years. And then they were looking at similar ammonia or methanol vessels, and they found out within the next 15 years, you still do not get the payback. So quite interesting that when someone, I remember in an earlier panel, I think it was John, who said that, I want money, I want to earn from the day one. Want to be green it from the day one. I think that is one of the things which you need to look at when you're looking at as an LNG, if you're looking at the cheap LNG prices coming very soon. I have an indication already that we are coming close to the time. Before we close, I would like to give you 3 options, and I want all of you to choose one of them, not all 3. So if you pick one lever which will really ensure that we take all the stops out of the LNG infrastructure, closing this gap, out of these 3, which one will you pick up? Capital incentives, strong policy support, or commercial commitments from ship owners for LNG fuel? Which one will you choose as the biggest driver to enhance the LNG investment in LNG bunkering infrastructure?
For me, it'd be policy. So I think what everyone's crying out for is certainty on their investments. So policy is going to be the key one in that.
Thank you. Hwee?
Yeah, same with Michael. Without the regulatory support, I don't think it will be sufficient to drive forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Sheen, you're in a different place. Can you say something else?
I think for me, actually commercial commitment. I think policy is very important, but we understand that there are certain choke points along the supply chain when we say commercial commitments from ship owners. But at the end of the day, the question is that how is it going to trickle down through the entire supply chain? But I believe capital without the commitment is a bit difficult. But as long as I think, like we say, we look at the numbers now, I think it just sets the tone for everything else.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. You may have questions, but I think we have a little bit pressed of time. We will have lunch a little later. All of us are available. Happy to catch up on these eminent panelists and ask those questions. I will summarize by saying that yes, there is, on the supply side, on the LNG bunkering, there can be a restriction, especially if the LNG prices go down in 2027 or 2026. There is a huge order of LNG fueled ships. So there is a need for infrastructure investment. And what we summarized from the last discussion is that the policy, what will be done in the MEPC 84 or MEPC 83 second session, including the security or the commitments, the commercial commitments, is what is needed for strong investment in LNG bunkering infrastructure. Thank you.